Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this London Tech Bridge Pathfinder Challenge Series webinar. Today, you're going to be hearing from three of us involved in London Tech Bridge Challenge, but we'll be letting you and introducing you to the rest of the team that are involved in the challenge a bit later on. For those who are here speaking today, be myself, Commander Alex Bingham. I'm the UK Co-Director of the London Tech Bridge. You'll also be hearing from Commander Albert Arnold, the US Co-Director, and Philippe Reich will be cutting in at the end to be answering questions and asking the questions. On that perspective, you should see a chat box available on your screen. If you could put your questions into that, Philippe will then pick them up and then ask them towards the end. Also on the line, we have Rhett from ONR Global, and he'll be able to answer any questions you've got about process as well. So feel free to ask anything about the technical side or also the process side of this particular challenge series. The title, as you can see there, is the Apex Undersea Challenge. So hopefully you're here for that right purpose and not here for something else. And today what we'll do is we'll give you a bit of an introduction first to the London Tech Bridge for those of you who aren't familiar with who we are and what we're trying to achieve. And then we'll move on to the actual details of what we're looking to get from yourselves as potential bidders for the prize in this particular challenge of Undersea, in the Undersea challenge area. That's great. Next slide, please. So tech bridges. The tech bridge is one of 15 tech bridges that exist, and these were set up by the US Navy as opportunity supernodes, which is a fantastic phrase for describing exactly what we do. We connect people. The supernode is the ability to come to one place and hopefully be able to lean into both the UK and the US Navies and find out who you need to talk to about your great tech ideas, the things you've been doing in your company, to find out opportunities to get involved with existing programs or even to get involved in new programs and sort of trigger new ideas. Well, we hopefully represent a slightly more agile interface than you're maybe used to have been working with for the navies. And from that perspective, we try and reach out to as many of you as possible, and not just traditional defence contractors, although, of course, we're very welcome to talk to you as well. And we do have regular conversations with people who might consider themselves to be kind of the original defence primes. But we're very keen to talk to universities, small to medium-sized enterprises, innovators, entrepreneurs, anybody who's been thinking about problems or particular technologies, and they think they're relevant to things we've been talking about. And you'll see, if you link into us on LinkedIn or on Facebook, there's a whole bunch of things we're interested in that we advertise through those pages. So I'd highly recommend, if you can get onto those platforms and follow us, you'll have best access possible to those kind of opportunities we're talking about. Importantly, we link into the US Tech Bridges quite heavily as well. So if the US Tech Bridge is raising an interesting issue, they'll pop it out onto the network, and we'll act as a conduit at the UK end to get that passed on to you, and vice versa. And the Tech Bridges are spread all the way from Hawaii through across here to London, and we're the first international Tech Bridge, looking to reach into both the UK and internationally as well, though. So if you're dialing in from outside the UK, welcome, and we're pleased to have you here. Next slide, please. So what's our mission? Well, clearly to connect people, as I've just said. That's really important. And we can act as a Rolodex. And where we don't know who to talk to, we can very quickly reach out in just a couple of phone calls to really connect you into both sides, both the Royal Navy and the US Navy. And looking the other way, we're really keen, like I say, to reach out into industry, academia, but also reach across governments as well, because they're complex businesses. There's lots going on in other departments. You know, you might find your tech may not be landing specifically in defence, but we can hopefully link you up with people and see examples where you might be able to tie in with other government departments potentially and bring your tech to that area as well. So we're very keen to kind of make those connections. Collaboration. We can act as a conduit, and this is a good example right here, what we're talking about today, of collaborating across multiple organisations. So today, although you're hearing from essentially US and UK sides of the Tech Bridge, other people involved in this are Imperial College, DASA, and the music team over in NATO as well, who've been absolutely fundamental in developing the ideas for the challenge areas we've got here. So this is a really broad team we've got, bringing together expertise in a great number of areas, both technical, commercial, financial, to work out how we can sort of start leveraging some of these great technologies that are available from the suppliers. We want to be innovative and agile, and that's a slight difference possibly from where some of the traditional kind of contact points may have been with defence. And that's really important to us, that we give you a response that is worth you getting engaged with. So you're not sitting here in 2 years' time having the same conversation. Hopefully we can connect you quickly with an area that can respond fast enough to the pace at which you want to go. And that's quite important in how you approach us and how you talk to us as well. So try and be focused when you talk to us, because that way we can help you more quickly get to the place you need to go. And that's great. And we can really reach out into the innovation organizations, both in the US and in the Royal Navy as well. Support, we will definitely support you on your way through. And what we mean by that is really ensuring that when you start heading in a direction, if you're struggling to find the right people, we'll remain here. We're not a one-point contact. You can keep coming back to us saying that didn't quite work. Can we try and find someone else? And we'll definitely look to try and help you find new contacts out there. It's also through webinars and seminars we're going to hold, hopefully some point in person, which would be fantastic soon, hopefully later this year, where you can come along and use us as part of your networking process. And we're very keen to do that because we can hopefully connect your ecosystem to other ecosystems and grow to our mutual benefit. The engagement piece goes without saying, and particularly I need to get into my spell checker there, so I do apologize for that. But engagement is clearly a very important part of understanding how we can help influence decision makers, but also help you understand how you might develop your products differently. So that engagement is very important. And of course, develop. Good ideas need to be able to develop. They need to be able to scale. They need to be able to get out there and be used at scale by the militaries, both for our end, but also for your end as developers. So make sure your investments are coming together and being useful to both your end and our end. So that's really kind of our overall mission. I'd like to hand over to Prince Al now to introduce himself and talk a little bit more further about how we go about doing our business in the London Tech Bridge. Next slide.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, Commander Al Arnold here. These are just some of the various ways that we can connect everybody through different efforts here. So obviously, like Alex mentioned, the seminars, forums, and panel events, different networking events, prize challenges like this one that we're going to talk through today. Additionally, we'd like to be able to provide, especially to potentially small, medium-sized enterprise that don't have access to the right tools, lab facilities, et cetera, the opportunity to potentially partner with the Royal Navy or U.S. Navy and use their facilities and equipment and other various things in a collaborative manner as we push efforts forward. We also, one of the key things that we want to do with London Tech Bridge, and all of the Tech Bridges do this, is provide the opportunity for direct access to sailors and Marines. So it's very important, that we can get that really crucial conversation started between industry, academia, and the actual operational users. Many times with a lot of programs, there's a lot of different steps in the process, and things kind of get lost in translation along the way. So we want to make sure that we have that direct connection and we can get feedback in both directions. It's important for outside stakeholders to understand needs and objectives and things from the operational perspective, but it's just as important for the defense side to understand capabilities and what's actually possible today and what could be possible tomorrow from our outside stakeholders. The opportunity to do prototype demonstrations, being involved in exercises and training evolutions, things like that. And I think that's one of the exciting pieces of this Apex challenge that we're going to talk through is something that plays right into that point right there. Next slide, please, Felipe. So before we get into the specific Apex Undersea challenge, these are 3 different kind of challenge series that the London Tech Bridge will be executing as time goes on. So the Apex Undersea challenge is the first in this Pathfinder series. So the Pathfinder series of challenges will focus on early and applied research, concept development, all the way to a basic prototype demonstration. The next series is the Catalyst series. This will be something that would have an output of more of a full prototype solution, a minimum viable product, something that is nearly ready to go and maybe just needs a little bit of scaling. And then the last series that we'll run is the Impact series. And this is going to be something that is a mature system that needs minor modifications to be operationalized. And the idea with this series will be that it's very rapid in nature and can be quickly sent out to the front lines. Alex, I'll turn it back over to you. We can talk about this Apex Undersea challenge. Thanks.
That's great. Thanks, Pritzal. So now we're getting to the heart of the matter and why probably most of you are here today to find out about the Apex Undersea Challenge. As you can see, and as Pritzal mentioned, it's aimed at the research and low-level TRLs. And we've got an award of up to 200, sorry, up to 50,000, and hopefully we'll have 2 of these to offer, at least maybe 3. So there's plenty of opportunity here for bids to come in. And what we're really interested in is pieces of work that will be lasting probably about 6 to a 6-month period, with, like I say, multiple awards. And also, hopefully, what we could give as an offer at the end of this is not only a chance for you to develop your work and talk to us about it, but also demonstrate it at NATO REPMUS exercise in September, which is hence the rather racy timelines for some of the development work. And this is really important, actually, because I mentioned at the beginning, NATO have been, the music team there have been absolutely fundamental to us developing these challenge areas. And they answer real operational problems and problem sets that the operators have come back to them to talk about being interested in finding new solutions to. So this is not just a nice piece of work. This actually has a potential for follow-on. And the opportunity to demonstrate at REPMUS is really key in giving you the opportunity to go further. Whilst this potential challenge won't give you the funding for that, what is hoped is actually if the product they see and the demonstration you give gets the creative juices flowing at those particular kind of forums like the REPMUS exercise, then hopefully that will give an opportunity for collaboration, some crowdsourcing of funding, potentially, and then may lead on to further work. So that's kind of the carrot dangling at the end of this challenge. So as well as an opportunity to spend some money to keep developing your ideas, to maybe get further engagement with organisations like the Royal Navy and US Navy that you may not have had in the past, there's also that piece at the end where you will probably be given an idea about how you might be able to scale and look across the whole of NATO. So again, I'd like to thank the music team, and particularly Commander Ian Danbury, for pulling together so much of the work that wrote the original parts of these challenges, which we'll see on the next slide. There's some big phrases in there, things like game-changing, and I just want to be clear. We're not necessarily asking for you to change the world in what you're doing. We are asking for something, though, to be original. We're not looking for iterations of pre-funded programs that you may already have. We want to be able to see to answer the question here. Now, we're not going to go back into your records and say, how did you exactly get funded for everything you've done to this stage, quite clearly. But what we'd like to see, that this funding is not being used just to plus up some existing funding. This is taking you in a new direction. And hopefully, by looking at the challenge areas that NATO have come up with here, you'll actually see a slightly different way of applying your technology. And that's the piece we're really looking for here. So it might be low TRL, and it might be a modification of something you've done already. But we do ask it's not just adding on funding to existing funding efforts. Next slide, please, Felipe. So 2 challenge air statements, there they are. We're going to hopefully have these up on our webpage fairly soon. And we'll have a link for that later on in the presentation. But really, there have been 2 key areas I think we've had highlighted to us as being critical. And they shouldn't be too much of a surprise for those of you that work in defence or even in underwater technologies. The first is high bandwidth, long range underwater cooperative networks. And that's quite an exciting area to be looking into at the moment. We've obviously done lots of work recently working with underwater vehicles and some of the great capabilities that are being developed there, both in commercial civilian solutions, but also in the military now. The Royal Navy, for instance, has done a lot of work using underwater vehicles now for mine clearance work, and it's a really fast-growing area. This is kind of taking it to the next level, where we're bringing in the kind of communications links where we can start to consider how we're going to do swarm activities underwater. So it's really important that we have those connections between the vehicles, those connections with base stations, the connections with nodes, and the ability to transfer useful operational levels of data. So rather than just sending single commands around, we're interested in extending this a lot further and actually enabling us to do real-time data transfers that are effective for the warfighters and the operators that are using these systems. This will also help them actually collaborate better using AI at the edge and to start actually doing true autonomy. And that's really important for us as well. It really has to, if you think about it, at an endpoint, bring that practical operational solution. We're not asking you to demonstrate that whole thing at the first stage, but if that gives you an idea of where we're heading with that underwater communications piece, hopefully that kind of gives you a bit of situational awareness around that. The other one, which is really important and has been developed quite well for the above water concepts, is the sense and avoid of underwater obstacles. There are a number of technologies out there which, of course, could help us with this. But it's really important that as our vehicles operate, they can avoid physical things, so they don't drive into them, which is really important. And the autonomy is going to absolutely require us to be better at this, and also be able to prove to regulators, for instance, that our vehicles are safe to operate. So when we have our specialist vehicles operating in maybe fairly commercial shipping lanes, they have to be able to avoid and be able to stay clear of other shipping, potentially other underwater vehicles that will be being used far more in those areas. So this is really critical from both a tactical looking after the vehicle itself, but also actually for covert activity. So they have to be able to avoid things they can see that bumping into would potentially cause a problem, snagging, nets, and those sort of underwater obstacles that may be put out to purposely catch them. So again, it's going to be a range of technologies out there, a range of ideas that may solve those problems. And there's nothing there that we're going to really direct you towards necessarily. We leave this open to you to come back with your novel ideas here. So these are two really kind of quite broad areas that both are very, very pertinent at the moment in how we're trying to develop the next stage in our underwater vehicle journey, but also actually long-term give some enablers for further technologies that will be rolled out in the coming years. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour of the two areas and also kind of why we were interested in these particular two. Prince Al now to take over and talk a bit more about the timelines involved in the challenge.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex. And remember, like Alex mentioned at the beginning, if you have questions, go ahead and just start putting them in the chat window. We're going to get to those questions very shortly here. So the overall process, the way that we're going to run the challenge, we're going to offer the opportunity to submit a white paper with an associated quad chart. So we'd like to do this before asking for a full proposal, because we do understand how much work and effort goes into the full proposal process. So we have an evaluation team that's made up of London Tech Bridge, DASA, Imperial College, and the NATO Music 2 team, like Alex mentioned, as well as other members from the Royal Navy and US Navy. With this evaluation team, we'll go ahead and take a look at these white papers, provide some feedback, and ask certain submissions to go ahead and submit a full proposal. Now, you don't have to submit a white paper to do the full proposal, but it's in the best interest for everybody's time, likely. So the timeline here is a rather rapid timeline, as you can see. We want to go ahead and get this launched out, and we'd like everybody, the successful teams, to really have that opportunity, like Alex mentioned, to demonstrate their concept, their potential solution, whatever it may be, at REPMIS. And we really would want those teams to be able to do that there, to potentially then, again, have a follow-on effort come out of that. So with that, the initial timeline here, which again, these are approximate dates and they could be updated. We would like the white paper submissions by the 5th of March. So that really is just over a couple weeks time. And we're going to go ahead and turn those around and give feedback on those a week later. And we'll be inviting teams that we see kind of matching the timeline, the cost, everything, to go ahead and submit full proposals then approximately a month later. We'll take about a week or two there, and we'll have the evaluation board meet again, and then we'll go ahead and select the winning teams that will receive the grant. And we have the grant awards there, approximately 4 weeks. That should be the most time that it would take. So once you get your full proposal registered, there's a process that there's a special notice that's going to be posted actually later today on grants.gov, and that will kind of walk you through what the requirements are. And once those things are taken care of, then getting the actual funding awarded should be fairly straightforward. And we have a team of people that can help walk you through that. Okay, I think that covers that. Felipe, why don't we go over to you and we can take some questions and answers here.
That sounds great. Thank you very much, Prince Al and Alex. We have plenty of questions from the audience, so thank you very much for that. The first one is, when you talk about UV autonomy, what do you mean by autonomy? Over.
I'll take that first, because I think I probably mentioned it. Clearly, autonomy's got many levels. and there's pathways we need to get through to our fully self-aware robots of the future. And certainly we're not talking about that. But within autonomy, there's a number of enabling technologies. So really what we're talking about with UXV autonomy is getting down that journey, moving along that pathway of moving towards that ultimate goal of pretty much autonomous vehicles that are self-aware, that are making decisions for themselves. We're absolutely nowhere near that point at the moment, either in doctrine terms, use case terms, or even ethically. I don't think we're actually anywhere near that point at the moment. So what I'm talking about here is those kind of tools and enabling technologies are going to start building that on that journey, whether it's situational awareness, whether it's thinking for itself and coming up with solutions and suggesting those to the operator as a means of enabled command and control. And there's a bunch of things happening in that world at the moment that I know certainly, Greg, your company are heavily involved in. So I think that's what I mean by autonomy. It's not saying we're looking for the full autonomy from this particular example here, but clearly some of the technologies we're talking about in communications and self-awareness in the spatial area in this particular challenge, those are going to be parts of the building blocks that will lead to autonomous vehicles of the future. So autonomy is that journey we're on, and these are the enabling technologies. That's how I think I'd probably best answer that. Al, have you got any kind of further thoughts on that?
No, I think that covered it very nicely, actually.
Thank you very much, Alex. We have another question here by Dr. Dye from Imperial College London, our partners. So he says, I'm doing research on theory and algorithm design in super resolution. My research had been sponsored by DASA. I'm wondering London Tech Bridge's vision on how to engage and nurture early research, low TRL, ideas which typically require long-term engagement. Over.
So I think for this one, the Tech Bridge will facilitate other efforts where we will focus more on those long-term early research opportunities. But an easy way right now, obviously, what we can do is if you contact us either via LinkedIn or use our London Tech Bridge email box, you can send us something and we can connect you in with ONR Global, DSTL. I know you said here that you've been sponsored by DASA, but we can connect you to potential interested parties in those organizations immediately. But the Tech Bridge will be looking for other opportunities to also engage early research.
Thank you, Prince Al. So great questions still coming in. This is another one. These topics are understandably very specific. I'm curious to know if you plan to have an open challenge so we can submit topics that haven't been thought of, but could be of interest of the Royal Navy and U.S. Navy. Over. Yeah,
that's a really good point. And I think it's an interesting area, this, where we obviously have DASA as a partner within what we do, and we look to the expertise of DASA, and DASA are very good at running open challenges. I think potentially a lot of this is to do where we find opportunity in the two navies to really find funding for it, to be brutally honest with you, and also to find organisations are receptive to those long-term engagements as well. And as we find those, I think in the future, we may well look for slightly longer term commitments. What I would say, though, is London Tech Bridge, and certainly the view of it from the Royal Navy at the moment, is it's not another programme office. So what it's not trying to do is get those long-term relationships that are really looking to build on year technologies managed as a programme from within the office. I mean, that's certainly the Royal Navy's view of how we see the benefits of London Tech Bridge. However, what we can probably offer would be one-off opportunities to almost showcase. So you'll be able to come in and say, we'll have an area, and you come and demonstrate the magic of your technology that you're developing within that kind of showcase environment. And that's definitely something we'd be really keen to try and kind of build on and give people more of an opportunity to get alongside and understand, that's also an area where we might be interested in moving towards. So I get it. It's kind of the technology without having an owner at the beginning stage. But yeah, definitely, that's definitely part of our goals. But again, it's very much based around opportunity and to be honest, resource.
Thank you, Alex. Another good question here. If a successful proposal is adopted, are there any issues with other, example, non-defense dual use, exploitation of a technology or solution in the UK or US due to IP constraints? Over.
Yeah, so for this one, there are obviously various ITAR rules and regulations that will have to be complied with. So applicants are responsible for ensuring compliance with those laws and regulations. What there will be in the grant, if you're selected as the recipient, there will be terms and conditions, and there are lots of available resources where we could look at these areas right now. And once we have this website up for the challenge, it should be up in the next day or two at the most by Friday. There'll be a section there where we'll have some links that should point you in the right direction and talk through the various pieces of that question.
I think what I'd also suggest is that I noticed this question comes in from, again, another colleague in Imperial College there. Academic side, I can't really talk to you quite so much, but certainly from the business side, we have links into BAYS and Department of International Trade as well, who stand by ready as a kind of one of those part of our ecosystem to help advise you about these things, and they are valid. They are valid areas of understanding you need to get into when you start working in the international agreements. I mean, fundamentally, there shouldn't be any problem. We have DASA on board to help run a lot of our challenges, to help exactly with this, because the rules are quite clear for those. In this, the ONR global rules, they're quite clear when you go and look at them. But if you are concerned, then absolutely, we can help you talk to people independently within the UK and the US side to give you advice on whether this is the right thing for you to do. So absolutely, good thing to raise, but there's loads of answers out there, and it's not something we need to shy away from, I think, to be fair.
Thank you very much, Alex. So a couple of questions here about the selection criteria, if we can share more information on that, and if there are any requirements on the white paper, example, number of words. Over.
So for this one, actually, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Jeffries, if that's all right, to Rhett from ONR Global. ONR Global has just run last year a very successful Global X Challenge, and I think Dr. Jeffries would be able to talk to this extremely well.
Sure. This is Rhett Jeffries. The bottom line is you're asking, I think, about what are the requirements for white paper and proposal submissions. That will all be spelled out clearly in the special notice that will be released. The special notice is referring back to the broad agency announcement that is posted on the ONR, the Office of Naval Research webpage. And so those can already be found there if you'd like, but we'll spell them out. Just a quick high level for white papers, we want them to be short and to the point. So we want them to be about 4 pages long. We're also asking for a 1-page, what we call quad chart, that will summarize the key points of what you're trying to accomplish, what your key concept is that you're proposing. So in total, about 5 pages. Doesn't have to be that long. And there is a format that will be included as a template in the release when we have that released here imminently.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jeffries. Another great question here upcoming. In terms of grant funding from the US, will the UK suppliers have to register with Department of State or other organizations?
You want me to take that one too?
It sounds good. Yes, thanks, Rhett.
Okay, yeah. So anybody that desires to submit a proposal needs to register for the U.S. SAM, the system that allows you to submit grants in grants.gov, grant proposals under grants.gov. There is no need to have that registration to submit a white paper, so we want your ideas quickly without any requirements, and we can help you if you do not have that registration, that SAM registration. We can help you get that in the future. So that's something that is the only thing required is to register for SAM to be able to submit grants in the grants.gov system. Over.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jeffries. So questions keep coming in, so if you can please bear with me. Okay, here's another one. Are there any depth or speed parameters which need to be met? Example, do we need to be looking at autonomous protection for ships or submarines or RIB type deployment? Over.
I think at the moment we left it general enough to enable a number of technologies to be applied here, because some will be better for slow moving, at deep water. Some will be great at surface, picking up the kind of contact and problems you're going to have around the surface. So we haven't been too specific at the moment. And I think what's probably important is when you put your application in, you kind of maybe talk to what you think it's optimized around, or if it does have a particular advantage, because that will help us better understand the kind of understanding you have of the environment in which you think the vehicles will be working. So there isn't specifically, no, because there's obviously a very broad range of vehicles we're talking about here. I mean, there are some which literally float on the surface and bob around and move at very slow paces. And there are some subsurface ones that will be moving quite quickly themselves, potentially. So I wouldn't want to be too specific on depth and kind of ranges at the moment. I think that's something which you can put into your proposals and gives you that leeway and that freedom, I think, to kind of demonstrate the usefulness of your technology rather than just being, yes, we can do things underwater. So no, there's nothing more specific than that, I don't think, because I think we're trying to help people be as open as they can be in their applications.
Thank you very much, Alex. As this appears to be U.S. money, will the contract be awarded in U.S. dollars? Over.
And for this one, so we do have value grants up to £50,000. ONR Global, in partnership with the London Tech Bridge, will be doing the grant award. So it will be awarded in U.S. dollars. And when you see the special announcement posted later today, like we said, in there, it'll mention an approximation for the U.S. dollars, but obviously that can vary day to day. But up to £50,000 for each grant is kind of what we have. Over.
Thank you very much, Prince Al. So they are asking here if this is going to be recorded. Yes, it will be recorded. It will be published as well on our website that we will be sharing on our LinkedIn page, London Tech Bridge, that is. No further questions for now, Alex and Prince Al.
Sure. So thanks for walking through those questions. Obviously, there's a lot of other things that we did not cover in detail in this webinar. The special notice will be posted later today. It'll be on grants.gov and on the ONR website. We'll put those links out there. We'll also have that then on this challenge website. The challenge website, which you see the address there, that should be live either tomorrow or on Friday. And please feel free to reach out through our other London Tech Bridge email box or the LinkedIn with further questions. And the London Tech Bridge email box that we have set up currently is USN London Tech Bridge @mail.mil, all one word. Alex, over to you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you for everyone for dialing in today. There are a number of questions there which we can post, obviously, the answers to as well. So we'll make sure everything that's been talked about today goes up on the frequently asked questions section of the webpage. So that's going to be really important. Keep an eye on that. If something comes up that we get a follow-up question about, we'll post information there about that. I think I just want to reiterate here, we haven't been too specific here in the area we're talking about because we really are keen on people bringing their technology and their ideas. And it may not be the most obvious thing that actually solves the problem set that we're alluding to. So if you feel like you've got something that adds to this area, please feel free to fire it in. We're interested in different and diverse, not standard and normal. This is why we're doing these sorts of challenges, which are fairly open. And again, by submitting a paper, you get on our radar as such, and therefore we're able to potentially follow up at a later time for a different connection that we can make with you. So that's part of it. What I would say is, by applying to this, you're kind of at the beginning of a journey, even if you don't win the award, because we can certainly follow up and help where we see opportunity later on. So thank you again very much indeed. And thank you again to the other partners who've worked with us here, particularly the music team over in NATO and Commander Danbury, who did so much work pulling us together with the team at DSTL as well. Obviously, the excellent advice we've been getting from DASA all the way through this to keep ourselves honest, and Imperial, who've helped out hugely in some of the advice they've given in terms of forming these kind of challenges up for research and development ideas. So thank you to all those partners. They are advertised on the announcement as well, so you can see who they are. But thank you everyone for dialing in, and good luck with your submissions. Thank you.